In this tutorial I am going to show you how to create a private internal network. This will be virtual network with 3 virtual machines in VirtualBox, and we will build these virtual machines also in this tutorial. And in this tutorial we are building on our previous setup. In previous episodes we installed VirtualBox and we set up Windows 10 in VirtualBox. And today we will expand this setup by creating a private internal network that connects 3 Windows 10 virtual machines. And here is a brief outline of what we will cover. Firstly, I will demonstrate how to configure the virtual network as a private, non-routable internal network. We'll clone the original Windows 10, which we created, virtual machine to create 2 more virtual machines. Then we will set up IPv4 or non-routable private addresses and subnet masks for all 3 virtual machines, so they are different on this private network. And we are going to do this to enable communication between these 3 virtual machines. And then we will run connectivity tests between these 3 virtual machines, like ping for example, and we will be troubleshooting common network issues between these 3 virtual machines. So let's start by setting up the internal network. And to do this we will set up internal network on the very first virtual machines before we are going to create 2 more virtual machines. And to set up internal network on the VirtualBox, select this operating system, which in our scenario is Windows 10, which we installed in previous tutorial on this VirtualBox, and you can right click on it and select settings here, or you can select settings here on the top bar. Once settings will open up, here on the left hand side select network, as we are going to set up an internal network. And here make sure that you are in adapter 1, and here make sure that you have checked enable network adapter, and in this drop down where it says attached to, currently we are in not, here select internal network. Where it says name, there we can give name to our network. Currently, as you can see, by default it is internet. I will give it a name my network, but like I mentioned, you can give it any name you like. And once you have specified the name for your network, then make sure that you have also checked cable connected. This will be like virtual network which we are creating here on VirtualBox to emulate real world scenario where all these 3 devices which we are adding to this network, they will be cable connected. And after you have done this, click on OK. And these internal network settings connect virtual machines only to each other on the same network or on the same LAN or local area network without side or internet access. This setup is ideal for creating a virtual private network for isolated testing, what we are going to do in this video. Once we have set up this network for this Windows 10 virtual machines, let's clone it and let's create 2 more virtual machines for our network. And as you already probably understood, I created this virtual network already on this first machine, so I don't have to do it to cloned virtual machines. So to clone a virtual machine, hover over this Windows 10 virtual machine which is we created in previous tutorial and right click on it. And here you will see in this tab clone. Click on this clone. Here in first field where it says name, let's give it a name Windows 10-1 VM. So we are creating another virtual machine which will be called Windows 10-1 VM. Where it says clone type, make sure that you have selected full clone, and here where it says MAC address policy, select this drop down and click generate new MAC address for all network adapters. And this generate new MAC address for all network adapters, it ensures that each cloned virtual machine gets a unique MAC address for each network adapter, avoiding IP conflicts on the internal network which we are creating. It is the equivalent of reinitializing MAC addresses in previous VirtualBox versions, ensuring smooth communication between these 3 VMs. And once you have done this, click here on finish. And it will create a clone of another virtual machine. Let's create a third virtual machine by doing exactly the same. On the first one you right click and then click into the clone. Where it says name, let's give a name to this virtual machine, Windows 10 dash, in this case we will call it 2, so it has a different name, and VM. Make sure that clone type is full clone, and MAC address policy, here as well generate new MAC address for all network adapters. Select it there and click on finish. So we will have another or third virtual machine before we proceed to testing and troubleshooting. And now we have created 3 virtual machines. On each virtual virtual machine we have Windows 10, and in next step we will be assigning IPv4 addresses and subnet masks to each of these Windows 10, so we can start testing, we can start troubleshooting, and we can start pinging. But before we do that, at first step we need to verify network settings for each of these virtual machines. So let's start with very first one, so click on it and click into settings and click into network and make sure that this is attached to internal network and that it is using network my network or whatever network you created. So this is okay, so let's close this, let's open next one, let's do the same, settings, and let's go into network. It is also attached to internal network and it is using network my network, so this is correct as well. So now let's click in third one, settings, and let's go into network, and it is also attached to internal network and it is using my network. So network settings are okay. Now we need to open all these three virtual machines, but if you are following my video tutorials, you know all settings for this basic virtual machine which I have set previously. And here, if you are paying attention, you would know that we will not be able to run these three virtual machines on my computer. Because if you look at processors for each of them, then each of them currently have 5 processors dedicated to them. As you see, this one, second one and third one, they have all 5 processors. However, on my computer hardware there are only 12 available processors, which means that we need to also change processor count for each of them so we can run these 3 virtual machines on my computer's hardware. And in networking this is very important to always think about hardware on which you are running some other software. And as I am creating this video only for a tutorial for absolutely newbies and emulating real world scenario, I am just showing you these steps in troubleshooting why in this or that scenario you wouldn't be able to run, for example, 3 virtual machines or software which require more resources that your hardware is capable of. So let's click into first one and again click into settings and let's change this. Let's click here into system, and here where it says processor, as you see I have only 12 CPUs. For this I have a dedicated 5, so I will dedicate only 2 CPUs. And I will click OK here and do exactly the same for second one. Select second Windows 10 virtual machine. Let's click into settings. Again, let's go into system. Again, let's click into processor. And again, let's dedicate this only to and click on OK. And let's do exactly the same for third virtual machine. Select it, click on settings, go into system. Select here at the top tab processor, 2 processors for this virtual machine and click OK. And another thing is RAM assignment. As you can see, base memory I have assigned 10 gigabytes of RAM for each of them. So we need to change that as well. So let's go in first one, let's click into settings. And here in the very first screen, when we are in general, you can see here at the very bottom, you can drag this down. I will drag it down to, let's say, 5 gigabyte. As I have 32 gigabyte of RAM here on this PC. And click on OK, click on next one, click in settings. I will select it at 5. You make sure that you have enough RAM on your PC. Click OK. And on third one, and settings, and again on 5. And click on OK. And now let's open virtual machine 1. As you can see, this is my first Windows 10. As you can see here at the very top tab, it says Windows 10 is currently running. I have already logged in. And now before we assign private IP address and subnet mask to this virtual machine, let's have a look at what default features it has. So in search of this Windows, type in cmd and click enter, and it will open a command prompt. And here type in ipconfig and hit enter. Here you can see more information about your IP address. In this scenario, this is 169.254.159.98 and it has a subnet mask 255.255.0.0. And I will not be discussing subnet masks as I will not have enough time in this video, but as this is the plan for future videos. But in this video I'm just showcasing you how you can access, how you can change, and where you can actually find these all subnet masks and your IP addresses of your device, as you can see currently for our Ethernet adapter, and we will be changing it. And to change this on your device, right click on Windows icon which is in the left bottom corner and click into settings. And once settings opens up, here scroll a little bit down until you will see network and internet. Click into network and internet, and here on the left hand side you will see Ethernet. Click into Ethernet tab, and here on the right hand side you will see change adapter options. Click into change adapter options, and here you will see this Ethernet. And here on this Ethernet, right click on it. And here at the very bottom on this pop-up you will see Properties tab. Click into Properties. On this window select Internet Protocol version 4 TCP IPv4. Let's select this and click on Properties. And this is the place where you can change or add your static IP address. In real world scenario you will not be doing this. IP addresses, subnet masks and default gateways are being assigned to local area network devices automatically by the DHCP server. But what we will be doing, we will assign this address ourselves. So click here on second options, use the following IP addresses, and here in IP address field we will be using this IP address for this PC. We will be using IP address 192.168.1.10 and this subnet mask and subnet mask. Click on OK. Remember this IP address 192.168.1.10 and hit OK. And now type in again ipconfig and hit enter, and you will see that now IPv4 address is 192.168.1.10 with our new subnet mask which is 255.255.255.0. And the similar way let's assign IP addresses and subnet masks to all other network devices. For VM2 which we created we will assign this one, and as you can see address this host part will be changing to 11, and to VM3 we will assign this IP address where host part will be 12, where for this first one we have host part 10. And subnet mask for all of them will be the same. So let's open one by one other virtual machines and let's assign IP address and subnet mask for each of them. So for this second Windows 10 we will do exactly the same. Here as well we are going into settings, we are going into network and internet, clicking into Ethernet and clicking change adapter options, and right click on Ethernet and click here on properties. And here also we select TCP IP and we click on properties, and here we will be adding this IP address and hit OK. And let's check it in our command line, cmd enter and ipconfig, and here we also see that IPv4 address is 192.168.1.11. So now let's do exactly the same with this third one. Let's open it and let's assign IP address and subnet mask. Right click on Windows, settings, network and internet, Ethernet, change adapter options, right click on Ethernet, properties, here select TCP IP4 and properties. And here the IP address will be with the ending of 12. And you might ask why we are doing this is because assigning each VM a unique IP address within the same subnet allows them to communicate directly. The non-routable private IPs ensure that traffic remains internal. And we are leaving a default gateway empty because gateway IP addresses are for router only if we are routing traffic outside to internet. As we are only in local area network, we are creating local network, we will be connecting only locally, so we will not need a default gateway. So click here OK. Now let's test the basic connectivity between these three machines on the network. Imagine them as three different computers on the same network. This is our first one, so let's open a CMD here or command line and let's ping other devices to check the basic connectivity. Now let's try to ping this second virtual machine, which is Windows 10-2VM, and that virtual machine, as you remember, we assigned IP address 192.168.1.12, and let's type in ping space and 192.168.1.12 and hit enter. And in short, ping command is used in our scenario to check whether we can access the devices on the same network, and it is sending usually 4 requests: request 1 timed out, request 2 timed out, request 3 and 4 also timed out. This means that we can't, or this Windows 10, which is very first machine which we created, or first computer which we created, is not able to access our second VM as we pinged its IP address and it is not available. And also by using ping command you can check whether you can access devices within your local area network. For example, in future, if you are building your home local area network, or in some office you are building a local area network, you can check by pinging the IP addresses of those other devices within your local area network whether you can access them. If you can't access them, then there is the problem. In our scenario I know what is the problem, and in our scenario the problem is that with Windows 10 the Windows 10 firewall is blocking this ping, and what we need to do for all three these machines or these computers is to switch off. For the testing purposes for this video we will switch off the firewall, but in real world scenario you could configure firewall to allow ping requests. We will switch off for this second VM a firewall. So to do this, right click on start icon in the left bottom corner and click into settings, and here scroll down until you will see update and security, and here on the left hand side you will see this tab Windows security. Click in there, and here you will see firewall and network protection, third tab. Click into that, and here you will see this public network, and currently this is active. Click on this public network, and here in Microsoft Defender Firewall you can see that currently it is on. Let's switch it off. Approve that we are switching it off, and let's close these windows, and now let's go back to our original Windows 10 computer and let's try to ping it again. And again we are pinging 192.168.1.12 IP address, which is IP address of our second virtual machine or second computer, and hit enter. And now you can see that requests are being sent, and here we can see that these all requests were returned, and each of these requests were returned in 1 millisecond. This means that now everything works fine, and that our Windows 10 computer, which is computer 1 which we created originally, is currently able to connect to our second virtual machine. And the same thing you do for our third computer, which is our 1 VM or our first virtual machine. You disable firewall, I already did it, and you can also do ping for this third computer. So let's go back here into our CMD or command prompt, and now let's ping the IP address which ends with 11. You can see that we are also able to connect to this third virtual machine, or we on to first virtual machine. But now let's try our first virtual machine, as you see Windows 10-1 VM, and let's try to ping this our original virtual machine which IP ends with 10. So let's click here CMD, hit enter, and here type in ping space 192.168.1 and .10 and hit enter. So we are now pinging from our first machine which we created, or this is our second computer, this very first computer. And as you can see, request timed out. And probably there is the problem now with this first one, so I will go back into first one, and again I will go into settings, and I will go into update and security, Windows security in left tab. Here I will go into firewall and network protection. As you can see, it is enabled, so let's click into it. Now let's go in public network. Let's switch it off, approve, and let's close this window and this window as well. And now let's go back to our first virtual machine, as you see Windows 10.1 VM, and let's try to ping again computer which ends with .10. And you can see that now our pinging is successful and we are able to connect all these three machines. We are able to ping from this machine, and you can try out to ping also from this second virtual machine, both other computers or both machines. And congratulations, you have now set up a virtual private internal network in VirtualBox with 3 Windows 10 VMs on a non-routable IPv4 subnet. This configuration is perfect for isolated testing, where you want VMs to communicate only with each other. We have covered network adapter setup, virtual machine cloning, IP configuration, connectivity testing and troubleshooting, giving you a solid foundation for more advanced networking experiments. And in future tutorials, if you are interested, we will explore adding internet access to your private network and configuring additional network services.